Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Brett,
And I'm Molly.
and this is our podcast, Let's Be Curious Together. Today we have some really great friends of ours, special guests, Ken and Robin Smith. Thank you guys so much for being on the podcast.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you for having us.
We've known you guys now, gosh, I don't even know how long it's been.
Well, for me, it's been like 12, 13 years since
Yeah.
I came to the church.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Probably just
We're
a
over
little
a
longer
decade.
for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been great getting to know you guys, and we've seen your kids grow and your family. How many kids do you guys have?
We have five
Nice.
kids. Yep, ranging
Okay.
from 26 down to 12.
Nice.
Expecting your first grandchild.
Yes.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Very exciting.
I used to teach, did I teach any of your kids dance?
Yes.
In the yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
Annabelle. Yes. So teacher, and then we've just lived parallel lives, if you will, for the past several years, and it's just been really cool to see y'all's journey. This is a huge honor for us because we get to sit down and talk through some of the things that we've seen from the outside a little bit, but also just extracting, just some wisdom from you guys. So we're super excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of things that we've had in common through the years.
Yeah.
Obviously, we go to the same church, so we have similarities in our faith. Also, entrepreneurs. You guys have been in the entrepreneurial world for, how many years?
It's a long time.
A long time.
Cheers.
Okay.
Yeah. Decades, you might want to say.
Decades.
So, yeah.
All right. We don't have to give an exact number.
Yeah,
We'll just say
right.
decades. So there's that. Also, you guys have homeschooled,
Yeah.
right? Just like we have as well. How many years did you guys? When did you start doing homeschool?
It's been 17 years.
17. Wow.
Fantastic.
That's
Pretty
amazing.
Moment of silence.
Right.
It's awesome.
That's amazing. So there's a lot of different areas of crossover, and
Yes.
Ken, I think I've said this to you before, but I see you as what I call a serial entrepreneur.
I've heard that word, Yeah, that could be viewed in many different ways for sure.
I'm sure it's got strengths and weaknesses, right?
It
Both
does.
sides,
It
right?
does. Yes.
But you've done a lot in the entrepreneurial world, and you guys have been, a unique thing, I would say, in this of trying to do as much as possible as a couple,
Yeah.
Yes.
and bringing, your partnership and marriage into everything that you guys do. And that's something we don't see a lot of these days, where husband and wife are really wanting. Honestly, though, I feel like even looking back, there was a lot of, two generations back that wasn't very common either,
Yeah.
to really bring the unification of that marriage into every area. You know
You
what I
see
mean?
like the Chip and Joanna games, you see a couple, examples, or what I think a lot of people do really desire it, but actually to get into the nitty gritty of it is
Right.
a lot more than it seems. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen even a lot of the generation, of our grandparents where it was very separate. No, not
Yeah.
many people would do
Yeah.
things together. Even some have separate bedrooms in that generation,
Separate
right?
bedtimes at least.
Bedtime.
Yeah. Right.
And it was like,
Women in the kitchen.
right, like you have your
Yeah.
domain, I have mine, and
Right.
we have this little area of crossover.
Right.
And so,
Right.
That'd
is
be
this
exciting.
something that was modeled for you guys by your own families to work together in this way?
I would say that Ken's parents really, they enjoyed their time together and worked together very well. So they
Yeah.
did model that for Ken. Ken's dad was an entrepreneur, and so was his mom. She's a music teacher, so she did private lessons and things, but
Right.
not so much for me. So it was the family unit that I had was always what I desired. So
Yeah.
it was natural for me to want to grow with him.
And I would say that we're pretty much we're stuck in the process of that old school, how we first were married and saw the generation of our parents and our grandparents coming out when we first were married. I was knee deep in the corporate world. Already had 10 plus years in it, and I was going 10 more when we first got married, and it was a transition. But it was I work, I would come home, we would eat, put the kids to bed, and that was it. So I'm like, oh, okay. There wasn't really much of a balance there, but how things evolved has been the dream, right?
Awesome.
We were able to see that transformation from the old school to which was always taught to us as stability, you know?
Right.
Okay, you're safe, you're stable.
Predictable.
To, okay, I'm getting ready to step out of the corporate world. And I was just crazy enough, you know, to quit and go out on my own, which took a lot of faith from
Because you were probably
her.
making a pretty healthy salary in corporate, right?
I was director of an operations for a major pharmaceutical company in the Chicagoland area. Had 250 union operators. I had 14 supervisors, 4 secretaries, and an admin. And
Wow.
it was a big deal. And for me, just all of a sudden, and I was traveling too. I was in Germany, I was in Switzerland, I was in Canada, in Montreal. And
Brand new house.
yeah, so we never had a problem with, you know, with having or being without. We were always living well. Problem was, I was there, you know, I was always there. And it seemed to work, but there was something missing. And that craziness was just enough for me to kind of put into play, to step away and have her support and just bring her along because we had nothing to lose. Just only to gain. And at that time, we only had Emma in the house. And that corporate thing really messed with the start of the entrepreneurship because the family it was just us 3, and we were trying to grow the family, trying, but it just there was a block, and then, you know, once we kind of stepped out on things, took some risks, you know, we had a couple pray for us because we never asked for kids for prayer. We just thought it was supposed to do this.
Yeah,
Go to
we
the
prayed
doctor.
for other people.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
Oh,
believe
really?
for
Yeah.
others. Oh, yeah.
yeah, and then
Saw miracles, but never really, like, let God have ownership of our lives as far as, like, believing for miracles for us. So
Right.
crazy to think about that now. Like, wow.
yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, and then we just let go. And then when we did that, somebody said, "Hey, can we pray for you guys for kids?" I'm like, "Yeah, nobody's actually offered that for us before." And then from there, we were just in the middle of this startup, which didn't have a lot of stability, didn't have a lot of financial gain, all the risks, everything to lose. But then all of a sudden, our quiver got full. We had, you know, our kids were on their way, you know, and
That's awesome.
then 3 kids later, after Annabelle,
3
or
more.
after Emma. Yeah.
Yep.
So that was, you know, the house went from just Robin homeschooling Emma at home and I'm going to work to all of a sudden 4 of them. And so there was a balance there. And at the same time, I was throwing ideas for the entrepreneurship to create that stability.
That's awesome. So I'd love to know where you're currently at. You know, fast forward, where are you currently at with your businesses, and, you know, maybe just kind of establish a little bit of story for us to branch out of.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we're originally from the Midwest, right? So we both grew up in small town Illinois, and we came down here to Florida a couple times, back and forth, as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grow up. After the 20 years of corporate, so I wasn't creating much stability. But at the time now, I own several businesses, ranging from commercial pool cleaning to big aquatic venues. I also have a vending route, and also working on a couple other things that are happening in play, like a wedding venue on a property, just trying to be smart with our money, with marrying kids off, you know?
Might as well. Might as well just create
Well,
your own unique venue.
It's like, hey, do you want to go out to eat, or do you want to cook, make a meal at home? So we
Right.
decided to get really nice steak and make a meal at home. So that scenario makes sense for making the venue at our house.
Yes.
We're able to do that. And then, so we have that going. And then on top of that, I have a non-for-profit that we're starting up, which is going to be something great that's going to be launched here soon. So, yes, we're definitely busy.
It's like that concept of, hey, I really love sushi. Let's just open a sushi restaurant.
Yeah.
That's exactly
So
what
we
we
can
did.
go eat what we like at our own sushi restaurant. Yeah, I love that. Is like, I think, case in point of what I think of when I think of entrepreneurs as well. It's just that, like, the possibilities are endless, and we can do a lot for ourselves, and we can like follow that vision and
Yeah.
that desire, and bless other people in the process.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask next question?
Well, I was just gonna hop off that
Yeah.
and say, I mean, I'm right there with you. I've always wondered where that. It probably comes from my dad too. I mean, but the whole like, yeah, why go out and pay someone else to do this when we could do it ourselves for less, and then we
Yeah.
could make it a business, and then we
Yeah.
could keep making money
You
off
can-
of it.
You
Yeah.
can,
You know, have it
make
pay
some money
you.
off of it, and then you can eat for free, and then
Yeah, it didn't always come that way,
Free.
right? So I mean, it just evolved into that with just wisdom, experience, and just surrounding yourself with people that would inspire and not hinder.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because in the past there's always been the family dynamics outside of the marriage, meaning both sides of the family, and
Yeah.
then just people that you surrounded yourself with that just really weren't giving it any fuel or support.
yeah.
And then the community that we found, where we know you guys from, just really embraced that and brought probably the scales balanced a little bit. Now, if you ask her, I probably took those scales and went like this, right? But slowly but surely, as we're growing older and wiser and trying to be more financially responsible and just create, okay, we're not going to do this forever, but we would like to move forward in a legacy type of thing, and let's start. I think we got the right idea, so let's just balance it a little bit.
Yeah. So in thinking about, your experience in that journey that you're describing, have you ever failed at something?
I did.
Aww.
I did.
It was the best failure ever.
It was.
Because
Was
we
it an
grew
all-in type?
so much.
It was. It is. We
It was pretty devastating. From the outside looking in, you would be like, wow.
So when we left the corporate world,
This
we
is
left.
bad.
We left with a. I left pretty much just dropping a bomb and just walked away. And we got in a moving truck and we left. Bought a business in Venice, Florida, in the Comas area, and ended up not doing enough research, not seeing all the red flags, not listening to the lawyers, but just driving myself and just thinking, I can do this myself. I know this. Nah, I can get over that. And, well, it got me. And we ended up taking the sale of our home, all the equity in that, plus money that we borrowed from family, and it disappeared. So that was in 2007.
That was your first venture after the
Yes,
corporate?
that was the first one, stepping out. It was just,
Very humbling.
oh yeah, it was, and there were some tests there too. It tested where we were at in our marriage. It tested where we were with relationships with families, and yeah, it was interesting. So,
What did you do right after that?
well, we kind of put our tail between our legs and moved halfway back to Illinois. We went to Arkansas, where my parents had a motel, and we ended up living in 474 square feet
Nice.
in a place,
Nice.
and raising Emma
Yeah.
24 hours a day in a hotel. It's a busy little small remote town, and it was a culture shock. It was a financial shock. It was like, what can I do to fix this? And so we found we found God in the middle of all that. We already had that base, both of us growing up, and even in our marriage and everything. But that's where we really had. That's where we got knocked out. That's
It was
where
tested.
Yes,
Yeah,
and the
it
Holy
was
Spirit
definitely-
just found us in the middle of our mess. And from that point on, a lot of things changed. For me personally, I didn't have to worry. I was stuck on the vices that were plagued back in my whole childhood. I was drinking, I was smoking, I was a workaholic, and so all that. And then one day, it's flipped, and I haven't had any of those desires since.
Wow.
And it's been, and that, I can't credit anybody but God. And it was her, being there for me, or else I would have just done what I've done in the past, is just run to a different place to hide. And but she kept me there, so that was good. But that's where we were. So that's how that was the failure. And from there,
You mentioned that you learned something
Yeah.
from that. Like, you learned a lot. What, can you give me some of those life lessons, the things you learned from that?
I think for us as a couple, it's a reminder to always communicate really well and to listen to the other people. Don't, like for us, like he said, he was going for it. And there were a lot of red flags.
Tunnel vision.
And he had tunnel vision. And so,
very stubborn.
but God's ultimately in control of all of that, right? So he's going to allow us to go through some things so that we can see that we need him and that we need to be in unity, And so I feel like it just brought us closer as a couple, closer as a family, because we were able to walk through something so difficult but still rely on him even more,
Yeah.
because that's really what we had left. We had our children, because Serena was still, Serena actually was down visiting when we moved back to Arkansas.
Yeah.
And so she did that move with us. And
That's our oldest.
Yeah.
Oldest, so.
and so and to walk through all of that, I mean, there was a lot of division being planted, because this is not just our money that was lost. This was a lot of family members,
Yeah.
were involved in this
How did
too.
you guys recover from that? I mean,
It's a work in progress.
Was there-
It's a
are we still
work
working
in
through that?
process. Yes, it is. And
that
but
we
it,
just understand that
yeah.
it can be very complicated as a family, depending on how your family felt about her. Like there are a lot of different things that can get in the way of connection and relationship and extended family, and
Yeah.
and then you add money into the picture, and there are a lot of people that would say never exchange money, never go into business with family members, never put that stress on family. But it sounds like you guys were, you're here obviously, but
Yeah.
did it take you some time to work through that and heal with your family members?
It did.
Yeah, I think it's still probably a work in process, probably for the other
Yeah.
people
Yeah,
involved.
that's
just
a real
because-
answer. Thanks for being
Yeah.
vulnerable
And
with
it's still looked at differently too. Seeing how I was in that corporate world, they didn't understand what I was thinking. Why would you take that risk?
Absolutely.
Why would you do that?
Yes.
So I always see that. I thought you were a smart guy. 20 years later, they're like, "How did you do that?"
Yes.
And so
Yes.
so it just took a lot of understanding, and we still have family members that question it. And I don't always say push it onto the family, but there's a lot of people that we were close to that still just trying to figure out what happened.
It sounds like you guys had a real trajectory shift in your entire culture when you did this.
We did.
Because, like attracts like or whatever. So I can imagine, a lot of people that you were acquainted with, family members, there are a lot of people that don't like risk and they don't like change. And they, we all kind of create this safety environment for ourselves and what feels safe to each one of us. And for a lot of people, that's a solid job, steady income, and not a lot of risk. So I can see if you guys were in that life to all of a sudden change, that could have felt like a lot of different
Oh, it
things.
was. We went from building houses, having nice cars. I had a brand new Harley Davidson to I had to cash in my retirement just to buy a trailer. So that we can live in it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
so
yeah.
there was a lot of humbling in myself, and almost felt like that prodigal son that had to go away and work in the fields. And I got stuck in the oil fields for a year, just trying to figure out what I was trying to do, what I was doing, just to create stability, bring that safety in,
Right.
And it was a season.
Thanks for sharing that with us.
Thank you for being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I really believe about, let's say human nature as people is that we generally are not wanting change until the pain of our situation becomes greater than the pain that change takes. Okay? Or what we perceive. You know what I mean? Like, I can see down the road that if I don't change, it's going to hurt me more than the pain of change today.
Yeah.
So what was the mindset for you guys that said, hey, corporate's here, I'm doing stable, to I'm going to go with the high risk because there's potentially a lot of pain there, right? What was that like? Where was the thought process? What were you guys
I think
balancing?
I didn't want to go anywhere, but I was miserable. I really was. I was working 36, sometimes 48 hours a week as a nurse at night, sleeping during the day, all because that's what you do, because, in today's world, the mom works, the dad works, they're, that sort of thing. And so, but I hated it. I did. I loved the nursing part because that's my nature. And, but being away so long for so many hours, to make some money, that, was not fun for me. So I had major depression. I was very oppressed, and just kind of functioning.
Stuck. Did you feel stuck?
I felt stuck. From the outside looking in, you probably couldn't tell, but of course Ken knew it. and we weren't connecting. It was like, ships in the night type deal, and
Right.
we
I
had
don't
a
know
lot
how
of
couples
drama.
do that.
Right.
Like the opposite schedules. I don't know how couples do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had several kids for that. She would work. We were blessed. Why I was trying to figure out after the corporate world for her to have a professional license to kind of fill that gap. So she
Right.
helped with that safety and security of the family. So it wasn't just a one person deal. We both pitched in together and knew that there was something that needed to take place to create stability and safety.
Yeah.
And so, like she worked at
The
the
depression
ER.
was in Illinois before
Yeah,
we even took
right.
the move. So
But
I
she
think he
would-
felt that pressure
It
too.
was funny. She would work ER after having Annabelle, and I would take her on her lunch break. I'd take Annabelle up, and so she could feed Annabelle, and come back and then go to bed and take. I was like, an
so
at-home.
sweet in
Oh
that
yeah,
town.
yeah, they were good. It was good. And then for me, I got to pretend to be a homeschool dad,
Yeah.
a stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
Let me use the word pretend
Pretend.
because my mind wasn't
Listen,
built
life's a
for
DIY,
that.
Ken.
It was.
Life is DIY.
All of a sudden, like I get in trouble. Like 6 weeks later, Emma's like, Robin's like, "Oh, my daughter's gonna have to start school all over because you didn't do what you were supposed to." I'm like, "Whoops, okay, man."
What you do today? Play with chickens.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we talked about the, anatomy of a chicken and like the eggs and like,
Yeah.
the
Right.
environment they're supposed to
that
thrive
would've
in.
been great.
All that
Yeah.
other stuff.
Yeah, yeah. There was a lot of life skills that our kids are definitely blessed to have when I was doing things, but
Yeah.
it was short lived.
Wow. So
You know?
so corporate to homeschool dad to leaning. You guys have played a lot of roles and worn a lot of hats.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
We've
That's
tried each
amazing.
other's hats on for sure.
Yeah,
And we're like,
yeah, we have. Yeah, we have.
That's a very real dynamic too of families that go through this like entrepreneur self-employment, switch or not. There's the willingness to do things that others won't do,
Yeah.
and the willingness to switch hats and to stay like. I think I can just speak for us, a willingness to serve each other in such a way that, we're willing to humble ourselves. Like, Brett this is kind of silly, but I'll take out the trash. I'll do things that he would typically do, and then he does things that I would typically do, but it's this agreement. You know what I mean? You're when you're self-employed, when you're living this life together, you just get it done and I think it transforms a couple relationship when that can happen. So that's really cool to hear that you were going through the homeschooling thing too, because that's a whole other level, is the education side of the kids.
Yep. It is.
It would be
Stay-at-home
easier
dad.
to be entrepreneurs, working from home and the kids are out of the house at
Right.
school.
Yes.
oh,
Easier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
In
We
the
didn't-
short term,
yeah.
at least,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
We didn't want to sacrifice that.
So
honestly.
let's talk more about that, because I feel like that might have been like the fire that was burning in each of your souls. You described this depressive state that you just weren't satisfied with the way things were. Same with you, but it sounds like you guys really wanted something different for your family. So if you can plant yourself back where you were in Chicago, and maybe as you were transforming the next couple of years, what was your vision in 5 years? Or what did you envision would be the ultimate
What you
after the change?
you wanted life to look like.
What did you want life to look like?
wow. You can go with that one.
well,
Because
that-
I don't know if I even had a vision.
You just wanted
I don't know if
different.
I knew enough or if I was mature enough to even have
Sure.
a vision.
Yeah.
Because I had such low standards growing up that I was like, I'll take whatever I can get type
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So just to be honest, yeah.
Yep.
So I thought, well, this is it. He's the one that had the vision.
right.
So
I was trying to create the house with the
Yeah.
white picket fence, all the kids,
Yeah.
and I was trying to do that on my own to be a success, tried the best I could to grow. And when I say that, it was something that really, I saw it all over the place. I'm very aware of my surroundings, seeing people that I could read the room pretty good, seeing people who got it and don't have it. And I wanted to be that guy that had it. And I didn't take no for an answer. It looked different because she was able to enjoy where she was at home and still have help if she wanted to, part-time nursing or whatever. It just wasn't clicking as fast as I wanted it to be. It really, I just didn't know what it was, and I don't know if I was just distracted because I changed all my go-tos, the old Ken, the old guy that used to just be the life of the party, be in the middle of the corporate, grow and fast and just build people around me. So I found myself by myself a little bit, and I needed to be socially active, and that's probably where we really leaned on our faith and just finding that right community. We found it a little bit in Illinois. We found it in Florida the first time we were here. Then we found it again when we went to Arkansas, which was a whole different story. That was a crazy story. When we humbled ourselves and moved into that apartment, my mom and dad had a swimming pool, and it was so fun. There was a couple there that their house burned down, and they were staying with my mom and dad, and we're Annabelle's young, and so we're meeting them, and it's nice. It was Emma, and we were just trying to relax and unplug from having to work at the hotel. Met this really nice couple, but it was like our first or second week there, and I grew up in a denominational church. I was Methodist growing up, so I'm like, okay, let's go to the Methodist church. My mom's like, you gotta go over there, go to where we go to church. I'm like, okay. So we walked in there,
And I'm like, oh yeah, we have to go to your mom's church because I'm not going to be disrespectful.
right,
So.
since we just moved into their house,
Yeah.
there was a financial thing there. So went to their church, and we walked in. We had the two girls with us, and they were quite young, and everybody just, it was like this record skipped. I'm like, oh, okay. We walked in. It's a pretty good sized church, and we're like looking for somebody to talk to, and everybody was just staring at us. So I tapped the greeter on the shoulder, like, hey, we're new, Ken and Robin, our kids, is there a place where they go for Sunday school or something we can do that? Share, where do they need to go? Oh, can you hold on a second? I need to finish. Anyway, and it just went back to the story. We're like, what just happened? And we looked over, and everybody's just watching the whole thing. And so we looked at each other and said, honey, you ready to go? It's like, yeah.
So they didn't get many new people in the church.
No,
Is that what you're saying?
No, it seemed to happen in a religious aspect. So when we were just starting our journey, we were looking for a relationship,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we walked out of there and drove, and I said, hey, remember that couple that was at the hotel? They said they went to this place down the road. Where should I go? And on the road, they had their mascot was across from the high school was a panther, and they had little panther plants and prints on the road. All of a sudden, they turned right and went down a hill. There's a lot of hills in Arkansas. We're like, oh, I guess I'm supposed to turn.
Nice.
I turned, and at the bottom of the hill, there's a church.
Nice.
I didn't know if it was the right one. We pulled up, and it was. And we pulled up, and the doors open. Two old guys came out, waved at us. Hey, how you doing? And then the 7-year-old man, I remember his name. Pastor Ken Light was his name.
Nice.
Hey, you girls ready to go to school? And then here we got a 4 and a 6-year-old girl. Just grab this. Okay, and they walk with them. We're like, what just happened?
Aww.
What a different experience.
We've got all of a sudden, and then like, hey, would you like to go to a Bible study? Like, yeah, sure. So we went down, did a Sunday school down there, and lo and behold, me and my wife were doing a Sunday school or a Bible study at
In Venice.
In Venice when we were down in Florida, just like a month before that, going through all that stuff.
Yeah, just a little small group.
They picked up right where that one left off,
Wow.
and we're like, okay, thank you, Jesus. Thank
That's
you, Lord,
amazing.
for meeting us in our place of need, and so so that's where we're at in Arkansas, and then we went back to Florida, and then 2014 I started my own business with Robin said, I got a 13-week contract with nursing. You got 13 weeks to find out what you want to do when you grow up. Like,
Nice.
oh boy. I tried the insurance thing, tried the sales thing. Nothing was clicking. I'm like, okay, let me try the commercial pool things. Everybody cleans pools.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that's a whole nother story.
yeah, that's a whole nother
So
story.
lot of these
let me
details
ask, and
are
how
so
old
good.
were you at that point? So at this point when Robin's doing 13 weeks and you are making this transition out, right?
Yeah.
How old are you at
Married
that?
at 27.
When we
30.
moved to Florida the first time?
No, at the 13-week thing, when you were doing nursing,
Well,
he had 13 weeks to
2014.
figure that out.
That was 12 years ago.
Yeah, 12 years ago. So yeah, I was in.
Did we get to know how old you were?
Yeah,
In
yeah.
your range.
So,
In the
no,
range.
I can't. I'm just doing the math.
Yeah,
38.
I can do. I was just
I'm 50
turning.
now.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I was just turning
38.
40.
You're just turning 40.
I was just turning
And
40,
40.
and everything was supposed to be like, aren't you supposed to retire in a
No,
couple
can we
years?
can we talk about age really quick?
Yeah.
Because
No, this is where I want to go.
Yes, yes.
Because
Okay.
I had one of these moments, and this is me, all my immaturity. I was like, when I turned 30, I was like, man, I'm not where I wanted to be when I turned 30. You know what I mean? Like I had these
We have to remind ourselves of this.
preconceived ideas of where we were going to be financially, where we were going to be, in all these different categories, and all my boxes, right? All the, all the ideas, and for the first few years of the 20s, things were kind of going on track, right? And we're having some of the kids, and then there's some deviations, and then there's, we're getting back on track, and the deviations, and then we had some major side swipes, and then 30 rolls around, I'm like, I am nowhere close.
Wait, what is 30?
Right.
To where I wanted to be.
Right, and that's just for you, not including you have a family and they're still growing behind you,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So that didn't stop.
Honestly, it's so encouraging when you actually get to the nitty gritty of the story of when did you hit your groove? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? As a, and I mean, even just for, I would, in the vein of like the father, the patriarch, provider. I think that there's a lot of different perceptions of when that's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
But really hitting the groove of provider, hitting the groove of, okay, this is the lane that God has designed me for.
Yes.
That takes a while. And so if you had that moment, can you describe to us like when you had that feeling, maybe? Have you had that feeling?
I tell you what, when we got back here, it was.
I think for me is just discovering that I really don't want to be outside of the home working.
Yeah.
I just, if I do it, it's for more of a pleasure, not for a financial gain, unless the family needs me to, and just understanding that God will provide.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
so did things change for you, for both of you guys, when you kind of took that stance, when you had that revelation of your purpose?
I think that's when we came down.
Okay. Yeah.
When I took that contract and it was, okay, this is what we're going to do. And like he said, we've got 13 weeks. And so he started working with a friend who did commercial pools, who years prior, when we moved out of Florida, Ken got a giant bonus. And we were really praying and asking God what to do with that bonus, because we could just put it on bills, but is that what we're supposed to do? And so we really prayed about it. And this specific friend had mentioned that he had some accounts, and one of his accounts had told him if he had this specific amount of money, he could get this account that was like $100,000 account for 17.
And he didn't tell us what that number was.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we prayed about it, and we just gave this guy this huge amount of money.
Okay.
And then we ended up leaving Florida. What Ken was doing was in pharmaceuticals again, and that whole opportunity shut down. There was a opportunity to either, we could stay in Florida. We didn't agree to do that with me working, or we could go back to Arkansas, get in the oil fields, or go to Puerto Rico, which would have been fine, but he's like, you don't want to live in Puerto Rico. And so he took us to Arkansas, and after a year and a half of the oil fields and learning that is just not a healthy place for our family to be in, me working, him in the oil fields, he came home, worked, did the homeschooling thing with Emma, and the boys were little.
Yep.
Yeah, so 2 toddlers at home, and Emma, and we are just like, wow.
Yeah.
What do we want to do?
Yeah. That was our aha moment.
It was
You had tried a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we finally got an agreement. Like, let's go back.
We were in agreement.
Let's do this
Completely.
Now it's time for the rubber to hit the road. So
Yeah.
we did what we had to do.
Was it at this point that you guys made this decision of we're going to do this together?
You know what? That was one of the times that I'd say that we were on board together before. She probably just felt like I was just dragging her along, between places. Not probably, I was.
Love and obedience,
Yeah.
baby. Love and obedience.
Oh yeah, she loved me through it,
So and on this topic, this is one of the questions we wanted to ask you guys. If you were to speak to young male entrepreneurs, both of you guys, what would you say with the role of marriage and your wives? What could it be? What should it be? Like, if you know, if you have these young people wanting to do this, what is the role of unity? What is the role of
There's a lot of
the
people.
partnership of the wife and the husband? And like, what does that mean to you guys? And would you have any advice for?
I would say balance for one thing. I didn't have balance. It did come to me with who she is. She helped create that balance. But as a man starting that and wanting to be that provider, you need to provide that balance and create a win-win situation for at home. So as any entrepreneur knows, or somebody that wants to do it, you understand that it's more of, I don't have to raise the capital, I'm going to work hard to do it, which takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of opportunities away from where you could be at home, and instead of being working. But if I'm working, then I can get ahead, guys, and then don't worry, then everything will be peaches and cream in a couple of years. So at the same time, your kids are growing, missing opportunities, missing concerts, you're missing all those things. And I would say that be sure that you would surround yourself with a good community of people and believers. Somebody that would understand your circumstances, maybe not as an entrepreneur, but understands how love works in each other, and how support works, and grace through circumstances. Because if you don't have grace for one another, then we would have been done 20 years ago. She wouldn't have had that grace. And she would have said, okay, fine, go do your own thing. I'm going to take care of what I think you need to take care of. So having somebody young and having a good community means, seeing other people that are in that same trail or not, possibly even mentorship. I love to talk to young folks and give them opportunities and help guide them through. Let me teach you all the dummy taxes. Find somebody that you can bounce some questions off of, because
There's a lot involved.
there is a lot of opportunities, and people just, sometimes they like to talk. I mean, she says I like to talk a lot, so maybe I talk too much. But if somebody's willing to listen and take hold of that, and then share that, that will give you a better foundation starting than having to work, down to the nubs and sacrifice your family for that.
Right.
It does work, but it's not the right way to do it. I would not recommend it.
So I've seen a big trend of a lot of people wanting to get into entrepreneurship, right? Into starting their own thing, for one reason or another. The opportunities in the market, or things that they see other people selling online. You know what I mean? You do your own thing, be your own boss.
Right.
And I think at the heart of it, a lot of it people are excited about is the recapturing of time, right? I mean, I was there. I worked the 40 to 60 hour a week job, where I was seeing the kids at breakfast maybe, and then seeing them right before they went to bed. And I was like, I didn't like it. You know what I mean?
I didn't like it either.
And she didn't like it. I'm pulling these 11 to 12 hour days all the time. And, I'm like, the kids are growing like this, and I'm just seeing pictures and videos, of it. That's all I'm catching. I'm missing all of it. So, and I know that I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people who are like that. And so there's a lot of people who are trying to get into entrepreneurship.
Right.
But you and I both know, or we all know, that you can very easily end up burning even more time as an entrepreneur than you do working an
You're
8
never
hour
off.
or a 10-hour job, right?
For sure.
Because you clock out when you're an employee, but you don't clock out when you're a business owner. And so a lot of people I'm seeing, like, they're wanting to make this shift, or they have made this shift into entrepreneurship, and then they're like, even less time off, right? Even less time available than they had before.
And I have to manage myself.
And the unpredictability of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So talk to me about, like, the time side of things, right? How have you managed to budget, to put boundaries around, or recapture your time? How do you do that in a way where this thing doesn't end up even more than it would have been if you had stayed in corporate?
That's so true. And I'm going to break a stigma right now. And people thinking that time is money. It's not. Time is freedom. Okay? So if you want to create more time for yourself, it's not to get more money, but it's to create more freedom. So the old saying of work smarter, not harder, right? And, look before you leap, measure twice, cut once type of stuff. When you think that way, then you know that it's not about that financial goal that you do have to set for yourself, because you have to have a consistency and integrity in everything that you do. But once you get time, then you get the freedom. Money doesn't get you freedom. Money will sometimes take you in the opposite direction.
Right.
So freedom
give up
is
your
the
time
time.
for
So like, yes, did I work a lot? Do I think a lot? Yes, I quit a 40-hour work week to work for myself. That works 100 hours a week. But eventually I got smart and figured out that I can balance my time better, take vacations times when I want to. And as God just definitely blessed me with opportunity and more, going from just one little guy in a little Ford Ranger to now currently at the moment just having 68 employees with multiple businesses, I've been able to duplicate myself. So that's another lesson too, would be, I'd say, duplicating yourself so that you're not the one always doing it.
Yeah.
Can anybody do it the same way you do? No. Do you have to shift a little bit of your thinking on that? Yeah,
That's good.
because I'm stuck with being a micromanager.
Right. It's easy to get frustrated with
Oh
your
my gosh.
micromanager,
Yeah,
but
and
learning to
so-
let go of some of the
Yeah.
unimportant things.
But that's maturity, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
unfortunately, some of the generations that are seeing what's on social media right now, hey, look, guys, you just press this button and you can have what I have, a
Yeah.
car, a car lot, a
Yes.
nice house. And it's not true. It's just really good marketing. It's really good marketing, and just understanding and trying to explain to a different generation or people that want to get ahead, that are even in their 40s and 50s, they didn't do it the way they wanted to. Just say, you need to step back and think about what you're trying to do. It's like winning a lottery, and it doesn't always happen the way that you want it and envision it. So, but yeah. I shifted my thinking in saying time is freedom. So I'm going to make good use of my time so I can have some more freedom.
I
That's
like
right.
that.
So
That's right.
We
Yeah.
had in and through that, we made a perspective shift, and we've talked about this ourselves a lot, which was also, I think when people are stuck in the, let's call it the rat race or whatever, the trading of time for money, you know what I mean? They try and buy back their freedom or their enjoyment, right? And,
Oh, sure.
And so you end up spending a lot on all these other things, what the cars, the boats, the trips, the whatever, to make it feel worth it. The freedom I gave away, I'm going to spend it on stuff to feel worth it.
Right.
And we had this conversation of basically breaking out of that is saying that's not even success. Like, the material things don't, that's not happiness or joy or fulfillment. You know what I mean? Like, getting that stuff doesn't bring anything to us. It's the freedom in our schedule, like you said, to spend the day with the kids if we want to spend the day with the kids, right? And the things that we're going to care about
Right.
60 years from now,
Right.
not all this other stuff. And so part of it too was us saying, well, what other materialistic stuff do we even need? Like, what can we just like forget about for now until the business is more successful one day? You know what I mean? Like, what stuff is even really that important? Like, and it was the shedding of the things that were really just superfluous and just like, whatever, that's
Right.
not that big a deal. That's not that important.
Right. You have to have agreement
thing-
on that too, though.
Yeah.
Sure.
One thing
Oh,
I
absolutely.
can think of right
do.
now, when you said that, what things are important, we went through, I don't know, maybe the first 15 years of our marriage, trading in cars because, okay, this one is more comfortable and we'll save more gas in this car. Oh, wait, I hit my head getting in and out of this car. Just stupid, silly things that really didn't matter. And then we go right back to driving the big Cadillac Escalade because that's the comfortable car. So what really matters in life, and like, I love that car. It's like, how old is that car? 10,
Yep.
8, 6 years?
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm never getting rid of it. It's my car, So just figuring out what, like you were saying, what
really
really
important.
are the things that are important. And that is so freeing to know where your comforts are that help make your life more beneficial. Because we talked about getting a boat, and we talked about the time and the expenses with the boat, and would we enjoy it, yeah, maybe for the first 6 months, but that would be a huge waste of money. But having somebody mow our lawn, it's worth the trade-off.
Time is freedom.
It's worth the trade-off.
Right there.
Yeah.
Keeping it simple.
I painted the front
Yes.
of our house. Did I enjoy it? Yes. But did I feel like painting the rest of the house? Or should we hire somebody and bless somebody with those finances? So,
Yes.
Yeah.
people are skilled in these areas. So why wouldn't we hire somebody for these areas, and
Right.
those sorts of things, trading off time for money and the freedom and not being stingy, to the point of where we're like overly concerned about finances all the time has really freed us up, because I would get a second job, a little job, just to make the money, and then realize, wow, this is not God's best for me, because I'm missing my kids, and I'm grumpy when I come home and things like that. So that's really been very freeing too, just to enjoy life more
Yeah.
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
being distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that takes a huge knowledge of self as well, and a huge understanding of how you work. Like, and accepting, hey, I had a great time painting the front of the house, but I'm done.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
done. I'm done. And I don't want to, I don't
Right.
want to,
And my real motive was to save the money from painting the house.
yes.
Yeah.
And although I enjoyed it, I'm not doing it
We,
anymore.
we like to call it a quality of life conversation. And we'll pass up a lot if our life just does not feel like we're at a high quality of life. And it's not silly, it's the
love
most
that.
specific things, I would say, because it takes a knowledge of self. It takes a knowledge of how you work, how you tick, what your appetite for life is, and then really what rest means. So did you want to take that somewhere?
Well, I'm going to go somewhere else as well,
Yeah,
but
well, I
I
wanna
mean,
take
I'll just say, adding on to what you were saying, I think too, for us at least, we're both neurodivergent. And the thing about people with ADHD is this, we hyperfixate on something when we get excited about it, and we're like, hey, this is great, and we can do anything. It's like in that mode, in that moment,
Right.
I can do anything.
wonderful.
Nothing's gonna stop me. I can paint the
There's no
house.
boundaries.
I could build a new
No boundaries.
Nothing is impossible. And then the moment that wears off, it's like I cannot bring myself to do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
No matter what, I cannot motivate myself enough to finish that thing, because it is not fun
And it turns
anymore.
into pain.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pain.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe not every scenario is like that, but that
No,
happens a lot
but
with us
a lot
for
of
sure.
them.
Yeah.
There's many of them.
There's plenty of them. Are
Ken deals with me doing that a lot.
Yeah.
Well, not a lot, but yeah. He knows I'm going to do that though. So I mean, he's readily prepared to finish cutting in the paint in the room, or family. My cousin
Yeah.
Samantha comes over to visit from Illinois, and every time she comes, I have a project that I start. Like that night, I'm painting a door or something. She's like, "What are you doing?" I don't know. I'm assuming it's a comfort for me to find a project and do it, while she's talking or whatever.
Yeah.
And she's just like, I'm going to bed now. It's 11. Are you done? I'll be done soon.
Her presence probably just brings something fresh into the house,
There
and
you
all
go.
of a sudden you see the potential of doing something.
Yeah, I feel creative.
Yeah.
I do.
Yes. I feel that way too when I get around people I love. It's just this fresh new creativity that hits. Anyway,
You do this.
I do.
But it's a couple days before the people are coming
Maybe
over.
so.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it's like,
And you're
oh, wait.
rearranging furniture. And,
Yes.
oh, this would look nice here.
Come
Yeah.
home and the walls painted different colors. Yeah.
I had a couple of times when I was working the 12-hour shift job where I came home at, it's nighttime, it's dark, and I'm tripping over furniture because the house got rearranged while I was gone. You know what I mean? I'm like, I walk into the back of a couch. I'm like, oh, where did this come from?
And when he goes to Africa is when I tackle major projects.
Oh yeah. It's
So I redid his office. I renovated his office. I
Nice.
painted it, and did a couple other things. Deep clean. I cleaned the carpets, everything while he was gone, because sometimes it's resistance.
because I'm gone for like 2 weeks.
Right.
And it's also the
Will it
time
look
frame of
good?
2 weeks to get it done. It's a nice little boundary. Of
No one can
everything.
object to anything I'm gonna do.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, she'll do that because I'm that micromanager thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. You put us in front of one of those IKEA put together. Oh, it's not.
I put together all the
Yeah, I've learned my Okay, I'm going to step away.
And I love doing
I'll go
it.
cook.
You want in
Yeah.
your lanes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Understand that lane
Yeah.
for sure.
That's so important.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before about freedom, right? And part of that being duplication. The conversation around, staff, bringing people onto your team is such a, I think it feels like such a scary thing for those who haven't done it.
Yeah.
And like, how can I afford this? Especially if the company is in a stage of like, I don't feel like it's quite making enough that I could afford to, hire the people, but I'm overwhelmed, I'm swamped, or I'm losing track or whatever. How did you navigate that? Like, what recommendations and like what, and when is the time that you felt like, okay, I needed to get someone else?
Well, I'll tell you, it started probably when I first walked into the corporate world. I worked for a food manufacturer, and I got hired as a supervisor, fresh out of college. And I was 21 years old, and everybody else was like 30s, 40s, 50s, and knew, here comes this young little whippersnapper.
Yeah. He thinks he knows
All of a
everything.
sudden, something clicked, though. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go learn their job. So I got in the crux. I was getting dirty. I was physically doing stuff. I was standing next to people, and that kind of gained some respect. So then when I was ready to do something, there was no questions asked. There was no resistance. It's like, hey, you're one of us because you understand where we came from, but yet you're leading us, right? So I'm thinking, okay, I like people. I really like people. And when I went to the pharmaceutical industries for plasma fractionation in the biotechnical world, same thing happened. I was working 10 years at a food manufacturer. I just went into pharmaceuticals, and they usually only hire chemists or scientists or doctors. You did
He has
what?
a degree in Parks and Recreation.
Oh yeah, and my
nice.
4-year degrees in Parks and Recreation. Yeah, so I nothing to do with business or food or science or nothing.
Organizing activities.
I needed a 4-year degree, and that's what I can get the quickest way through. And that's what happened to me.
That's a real story.
It is. Yeah, it is. And so when I went into pharmaceuticals, I I said I'm going to duplicate this, and it was a union environment. And I came in as a second shift supervisor, but they wanted me to keep me on day shift. And so all of a sudden I started working next to them. And I got warned by one of the supervisors saying, hey, they'll file a grievance on you. I'm like, well, okay, I'll check my boundaries. But I ended up just talking and finding out who they were. Are you married? Do you have kids? Where do you live? I'm new. And finding the people that you were able to talk to. And there was a lot of people that opened up, that just wanted somebody to listen to, working in an environment. And I did that. And next thing you know, they kept me on first shift. So I got my first promotion before I even started. Instead of doing a second shift supervisor, they kept me. They created a job for me on first shift. And the guys liked me. And 10 months later after that, I got promoted to the plant, the superintendent for the department. Again, no science background, just relationships, building teams, building those things.
That does not surprise me.
Yeah,
Knowing you.
And the next thing you know, I was interviewing for another job for the department head. That other guy got promoted, and I was sitting in front of this guy, and he was about 250 pounds. He was muscular, had a crew cut haircut, had a big truck outside. It was just very strict, and everybody knew him as somebody that was very timid to be around. So I remember interviewing with him. He's like, why do you think you should have, promoted and stuff like that? Well, I like what I'm doing. I want to see it. And I said, in fact, I want to be sitting in that desk where you're at right now. He stood back. He's like, you what? It's like, yeah, when you get promoted into the next job, I would like to be sitting in your desk. All of a sudden he sat back. He said, okay, I've heard enough. And from that point on, we were friends because
Nice.
he knows that because we were going to be colleagues.
Yeah.
Moving into a position, and that's just treating people that way, building teams. I went there. I was there for umpteen amount of years. I got 5 promotions in 4 years. without having any of that science degree.
Was
And-
supposed to get laid off once. But
yeah.
Nope.
And my boss, oh my gosh, he did not like me. He tested me, even though he hired me for the position, because I didn't have a science background. He would ask all the people in the room all these technical questions, and he'd come and ask me, I'm like, well, I'll have to get back to you because I know a guy that knows that, and that's not me. But I don't claim to be the smartest guy in the room. But that didn't work out too well, but it still worked out good for me. And then I just took that mentality everywhere I went.
There's a shift now, though. So
Yeah.
when you're in the corporate world, for lack of a better term, you're in a management position, but you're working with someone else's money.
Yeah.
When you have to work on the hiring and firing of people, you're not the one that's footing the bill
Yeah.
to hire that person on,
Right.
right?
Right.
The corporation is. So
Right.
now you're in your own business, though,
Right.
and now it's your own money,
Right.
your risk. When it was in your own business, how did you decide,
Well, there were some technical skills that I picked up along the way.
Okay.
So I would have also a really good relationship with the accounting department. I would go sit down and listen to them because they love to hear the stories from the floor. And my forecasting was only 0.4% off of forecasting where normal other departments were like 16 to 20%. And they liked that, because I learned it and listened and would have relationships not just with the operations or with management, but with accounting. So all of a sudden I found out financial accountability is good too, and so I learned that. So here I am starting a business up. I'm by myself in 2014, driving around this Ford Ranger, with the pool sticking out way back there and going down the road. And I'm like getting really busy. And then next thing you know, I found out that I was starting to cut corners because I was taking on a lot of stuff. God just kept throwing things on my plate more and more. And I'm like, I don't want quality to be, I want to be known and glorify Him with everything I do. I'm not doing that right now. Ended up seeing a guy sweeping at one of the commercial pools that I was doing. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? I've never seen you before. Barely any English. He's like, they hired me just to just clean. I'm like, oh, what are you doing at night after you do it? He's like, nothing. Like, you want to come work for me? Just 4 hours a night? I do this part and you just vacuum. It's like, sure. Next thing you know, I gave him one pool that he was at. Next thing you know, he took 2 pools, 4 pools. And even though there was a language barrier there, he ended up just watching me do what I'm doing. And then he ended up just running. I would do half of the work and he would do the other half. So, I just duplicated myself on one part of it. Not all of it. Not the calls, not the chemistry, not the licensing part.
Not the sales,
Not the sales,
business.
but actually the production that needed to take place.
Nice.
And then from that point, it happened again. I grew too much. I need to hire some more people. So I did the same thing. And then just kept going and going. I used that formula. And then also some of the training that I learned, that I picked up from everyday leadership training that blessed me with, just showing, watch me what I do and I'll do it. Then watch me what I'm doing and I do it. Now you help. And then the next aspect is, okay, now you're going to do this and I'm going to help you. And then the last part is, okay, now you're doing it all and I'm watching you, right? And so I used that to build my pool business from 1 employee up to 68.
Fantastic.
For multiple businesses. And I still use some of that training. I ask for permission and use that
awesome.
training for all of my managers.
That's great.
So
Fantastic.
it's good. So
That's awesome.
yep, I'm never too old to learn something new. So
Yes.
kind of pick things up along the way.
Yeah.
So
And so you made a
it.
shift, though, there of saying from working in your business to working on your business. So you were getting people not to work on the business for you. You were getting people to work in the business for you. And for those who don't know that what we're talking about, the labor of actually doing the work is what you were outsourcing.
yeah,
I think there's a lot of people I know too in the entrepreneurial world who say, I don't want to deal with the sales and the accounting and the networking and the other stuff. I just like doing this task.
job.
The
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but you can't grow. There's going to be a stagnant point. Like, you can't leave the whole working
Right.
on the business and business growth necessarily likely to someone else. Maybe you end up in an ideal partnership. Someone somewhere does, who a partner's willing to do that. But it's not like you can outsource that usually to another company to say, hey, come and grow this business and work on this business for me so I can work in this business. So
one thing that shifted on that too,
Yeah.
with that perspective was a lot of people that I worked with. I had some work in Texas and other places in Florida, and I showed them how to do the work, so I knew what I was doing. I would get down in the dirt or in the water or swim or whatever, and they're like, "You're the owner. What do you mean? Is that the owner out there?" Like, yeah, hey, and I wasn't afraid to do it, and just set the example.
Yeah.
And show them that it'll build that character. I'm not afraid to tell you to do something that I wouldn't do myself. So that built a good relationship. So they understood the culture right off the bat. That this guy isn't just all hot air. He isn't just telling me to do something to get a buck. He's actually he knows what he's doing. So
Yeah. And in the beginning, he had residential and commercial pool accounts, but just learning that, in order to duplicate himself, he'd prefer to do commercial accounts too, right? Yeah. Just because of the liability of having residential accounts, the amount of phone calls you would get if you had,
right.
It just didn't make a lot of sense.
And
for
people
us.
wanted to see my face every time.
Right.
When they stopped seeing my face, they're asking, "I don't like this. I trust you on my property.
Right.
Where are you?" And
Yes.
so those calls shifted. So, and I had it real early, thinking that the commercial was a higher risk, but a better reward. So.
And then bidding the jobs what he's worth versus.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
I'm not the
Be the
cheapest one.
lowest bidder.
So I'm not the cheapest guy. They know that. People
That's a
know
hard
that.
But because it's quality.
Yeah. This last job that I got in Florida here, there was 3 companies that bid, and I was 1.6 million over the next closest guy, and they still chose to go with me because of that relationship of experience and
quality.
quality. Yeah.
Nice.
Not tacking it on after they get the bid.
Yeah.
'Cause that's what a lot of people will do, right? So
That's just good business there. Yeah.
it's just a good business practice to be honest and upfront at first, right?
So, I know this is a vulnerable question,
okay.
and don't feel like you have to answer if
Okay.
you don't want to. Has there been a time since the restart, let's call it, when you went
The Great
to-
Reset.
The Great Reset.
since the Great Reset, and you guys started doing business on your own, okay, and you decided we're going to do this together as a couple.
Yeah.
Can you think of a time or more than one where you guys have maybe not been in agreement on something, and
Yeah.
been like, hey, here's something, you're thinking both different directions, and how that played out, whether
Yeah.
you guys compromised or went ahead with it or whatever?
There was 2 times that the higher risk comes with the larger accounts and stuff like that, more financial accountability. There was a client that was withholding payment for almost close to 6 months, and talking about being tight at home. Of course, the discussion at home is, "Did you get paid yet?" Like, "No, I'm working on that, honey." "Well, what are you still doing?" So there was a lot of discussion, like, "Why do you keep doing what you're doing?" And then like, "Well, maybe we should go back to the corporate world. There's a water treatment plant in St. Petersburg. They're hiring for the same amount of money that we're bringing home. What
Gosh, I barely remember this.
you want to go back and do that?" And all of a sudden, things shifted, and boom, 6 months came, and the money came, and I was able to stretch that out. The second time that happened, I was working in Texas, and at that time there was more to 35, 40 employees, and I was having to carry payroll after the COVID, and that was interesting because a lot of people felt during that time that they would save money by cutting their own grass or cleaning their own pool, but from a corporate standpoint, from a public safety thing, the large accounts I had, they couldn't do that. But they chose to push the limit a little bit. And I went $324,000 in waiting and invoices. And that got stressful at home. We had, it got up to like the mortgages were close, the credit cards, everything was maxed out, just so I can hang on to try to collect. And then
And we care about our people.
we did. I
Our
still
company,
paid
so it was-
people.
They're still getting paid.
You
and
chose
we
not to
don't
lay
want
them
them
off.
to
I did.
lose.
I
their
chose
work.
not to.
Yeah.
And during that whole time, it's a test. There's a lot of faith involved. There's a lot of discussion internal. Yes, it was tough. There were some really hard discussions because I had the vision of I'm just waiting for that to take off, and she didn't see what or had the relationships I had, wondering what's taking so long. I don't understand why they don't pay people that already did the work. And so there was some tension at home for that, just balancing through that. But I can say, but God on that one really came through. If I could share real quick, it got to a point where I had to hire a lawyer, and I didn't even have enough money to get a retainer for a lawyer. And I had funny thing was, it's funny how things work. Some of those camps that Camp Divided doesn't survive. I had a call from somebody that was inside of that camp, said, hey, why don't you try this? And they said, put a mechanical lien on them. They won't be able to sell any property. I'm like, wow, did you have to tell me that? In my mind, I'm thinking that. But I'm like, okay. So I don't know how I did it. I got like $1,800 to retain somebody to put a mechanical lien on there. And I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. And then I started fasting, and I said, I'm going to do a 7-day fast. I shared it with one other person at church, but I was just doing water and just praying and for 7 days. And then that 7th day hit on a Saturday. And the owner of this person, that owed me the money, is Jewish, and he was recognizing the Friday Shabbat and wasn't answering the phone. But on Saturday, I was celebrating, and I just gave it over to him. I pulled the Jericho thing. I grabbed a shofar from one of the kids' bedroom. I blew the shofar, and I ran around the house, and nobody was home. I was by myself, so I could act as goofy as I wanted to. Good thing we didn't have any cameras in there. But I yelled, and I screamed, and I blew that shofar that morning because I was celebrating. And that was a total faith trip. And then all of a sudden, at 10:36 on that Saturday morning, I got a call saying that the money is being transferred from a business. That don't happen during business hours. Transfers happen Monday through Friday. I got a money transfer on a Saturday, and that's where I knew, oh man, it's all up to him. I just get, that's another big part of our business. That's awesome. Just having that faith, and so that was tough. That was a challenge in the home, because now that security has kind of been threatened a little bit. Yeah. But God, and that's all I gotta say. And He came through like, oh, it was so good. Awesome. But it was hurt. It hurt.
Yeah. So Robin, I mean, the high risk, high reward, the nature of the business, if you will, or the nature of the lifestyle, describing this, high stakes deal, if you will. What were you walking through? Walk us through what you were thinking there.
Well, he had not told me that they had not paid in so long. So because of the first time that it happened, I did the books. And so I was deep into finances, and I knew, who was current and who wasn't. Okay, and, we like to give people grace, And so we had gotten burned a couple of times with some HOAs not paying for months, and before we would say, you know what, we're not going to come back. Our services discontinued. And so with the first client waiting to get paid, that was a learning experience, definitely. And I would say that, ultimately God is in control of all things, right? So he would know what we were going to go through before we went through it. And so I like to look at the end result is, we were able to do a lot of things with that money. It was saved up for us.
Yeah.
Unexpectedly.
Hence the car.
Whereas we probably wouldn't have done the greatest things with it. Like we've always been financially responsible, but we're very big givers.
Well, that was a great tithe check.
The savings, we wouldn't have saved up for the things that we were able to do with that money. We would have probably, prayed and sowed it here. And so, which is great. Reaping and sowing has been phenomenal for us. It is a truth that we live by.
But in the second one,
he didn't. Yeah. So I didn't know the direness of it till maybe 10 days before. And he shared with me, this is what's happening and this is how much they owe. And I think he felt more of it than I did.
Sure.
As far as the emotional side of it, because he felt very responsible. He didn't share it with me, and so I think he felt more of it, and so maybe that's why I didn't participate in the fasting or the worrying so much about it. Just you need to just get out of there if we're not going to pay us type thing. And like we said, I didn't go to Texas. I didn't know the employees personally. I didn't have a personal attachment with them, although I appreciate them. I had met them maybe once. So yeah, he unfortunately kind of walked that.
He took it.
He took the brunt of everything.
Yeah, yeah. But that doesn't always happen.
Because my faith had already propelled beyond what my everyday financial needs are. Because I know that they've always been taken care of.
Yeah.
Like we've been in so many places in our marriage that I just know we can get through everything, so it'll be okay,
Wow.
I know you guys are, partners in business, but I would love to dig a little deeper into you being home, you being at home, staying like on the home front, if you will, or, grounding. Like I see the matriarch role. I appreciate it a lot differently now that I've quit my job. I had a lot of purpose in it before. My mom was somebody who didn't work outside of the home. She homeschooled us, and very, very much I grew up my mom was present at home, which I'm very blessed about that because of that. So for me, I see a lot of purpose in it. I see a lot of balancing of his role and energy, and having a groundedness of this is our sanctuary, this is our crash pad, this is our landing strip, just that, come lay on the couch, like have your needs met and the comfort and safety. I really am passionate about that, but I want to hear a little bit about your heart of what you believe it does for your family, for you to be home.
Oh wow, I don't think I really even thought about what it does for my family.
I'm sure it does. Obviously there's so much purpose in it, but it's hard sometimes for us to see it, but I just kind of maybe want to hear maybe why you like your heart behind it, your dream, your vision for it as well.
I really want for my children to know Christ and to know that they're his and they're fully loved. So part of that goes into like being very transparent with my kids. So I don't hide a lot of my, weaknesses. I know that growing up, I lived with my grandparents till I was 8. And so their parenting style was stoic. Like I never saw them argue or have a disagreement or discuss through things. And it was up in the morning, cook the breakfast, grandma kisses grandpa goodbye, and everybody goes about their day. I went to a school, and then at night it's dinner, and like the Donna Reed show. I don't know if you guys ever watched that, right?
For sure.
And so growing up, you watch all those shows. I was a TV kid. And so you watch all the shows about how family life is supposed to be. So that was kind of the vision that I had for my kids. And I soon learned after I had Emma, all I wanted to do was be a mom. Like literally have a husband, great husband. I told Ken the other day, I'm like, I didn't even know what I wanted in a guy till I met you.
Yes.
And then I was like, wow, that's what I want in a man. So
I love that. I love that.
So, so where was I at?
So what does it mean for Ken, to come home and like be able to come home to an environment that is peaceful. Like the other day I heard that it's the
Did we
woman's...
say we had 2 boys?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just,
Yes.
I'm just,
Peaceful.
Well, the other day I heard this really great saying that women, women who are at home, it is the matriarch, the wife's role to create the spiritual atmosphere in her home. Whether it's peace, if she's at peace,
It is.
it's peaceful at home. If she's in turmoil, it's
That's
turmoil
true.
at home, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not that boys aren't rowdy still.
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no, no.
Either way, but
Yeah.
the spiritual environment.
Yes.
It's very, to think of it that way, it's super empowering because our prayers matter, and our attitude really matters too. So just to be excited about the everyday household things, I love it. I love being excited about the everyday household things. When I don't feel excited about it, that's a bad day, because that's really where my heart is in the home.
Yes.
So I want to be excited about being at home and being there for my kids and praying over them before they go to sleep. Like there's certain routines that I have built in that I feel like give my kids and can comfort, in expecting me to behave in a certain way or do a certain routine. So I get hard on myself if I miss out on that or don't feel like doing that. But yeah, I'm very grateful for being able to be in the home and get the opportunity to raise my kids and to homeschool my kids and to learn in that process and not be stuck in one. So homeschooling's a whole nother subject, right? Because I started off with, I need to school them the way school schools them, right? And did that for a long time. And then that's not how my personality is set up at all. It's like, we need to learn certain things because we need to learn them. And then there's giftings that we have that we really need to encourage our kids to grow in. And discovering those giftings has been very exciting.
That's cool.
So I think that's something that being a homeschool mom allows you to do is to see the giftings in your kids and not put the pressures to be something they're not on them.
Yep.
And to encourage them in a positive way rather than discourage them because they're not meeting a certain social
Absolutely.
boundary that just is stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I don't know another word for it.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
And she doesn't give herself enough credit, by the way.
Yes.
So she
I
does
believe that.
deserve a lot of the credit. As the house is like, you have, if you look at it from a company, she is definitely the plant manager. Right? She is running the ins and outs and everything. And I'm just the guy that oversees once in a while and tries to participate and think I know what I'm talking about. But she's in the front line. I get that look once in a while like, nope, that's not it. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll back off a little bit.
You forget what you do as a mom. You don't really, it's just natural. So like, did you take the kids to the dentist like last month or something?
A couple months ago.
And I didn't realize he didn't normally do that. And so he didn't know what he was doing at the dentist. And it was like, I guess I do always do those jobs. That's interesting. So, and my kids still want me there doing those things.
Yes, they
too.
do.
Homemaker is a very
do.
full-time
They would
job.
prefer mom.
Very full-time position.
Yes. Yeah, and just in thinking, not everybody has the option to stay home. Not every woman, not every mom has the option to stay home. I am extremely grateful that I can as well. And I think that we need to talk more about the nuances of what it really means to have the woman home, like the wife, the mom home. I think there are just so many gaps that are filled. And we just had a really easy comparison because I was working part-time. It felt like full-time. Huge relational pour out, teaching.
And you're drained when you come home.
And I'm
like, I
drained.
gave
I
it to
have
somebody else today.
I have nothing.
Yeah.
And now I have something to offer, and I realize, oh my goodness, my kids are a lot more calm now that I'm home. My husband is a lot more empowered and a lot more like in the zone now that I'm home.
Yeah.
Because he's not having to compensate for me not being home, and just the house is a lot more at peace, I think. And I think these things should be talked about more, because the role that we are tends to get, it's just like, yeah, of course it's always going to be there, but it's not, because nowadays women choose to be outside the home a lot more.
Right.
By choice or not by choice.
By choice or not.
Yeah, something
Yes.
like that.
Yes. So
We had really
Yeah.
strong convictions for us, and this may not be the same for you guys, but we had really strong convictions about wanting to be the ones that raise our kids.
yes.
Yeah.
We had, I don't remember who it was that had said this to us. It was, I think it was a parenting course we were in or something like that. And he's like, we send our kids off to school, and then we send them to an after school program. And we basically spend like this 1 hour or 2 in the morning and 1 hour or 2 at night, of real time. You know what I mean? Like you might get 2 hours of real time a day with their kids,
Right.
outside of sleeping and meals and homework and all that stuff. It's like you get maybe 2 hours a day to imbue your culture in them. And then their teenage years come around and you wonder, why are they not like me? Why are we clashing all the time? And I mean, there's some of that that's going to happen anyway because hormones and all that. But they're like, why are we clashing? Like, why are you going? And they're like, well, someone else raised them.
Raised
and
my children.
And set their culture for them. They spent
Yeah.
8 hours a day in a classroom environment, you know what I mean? With
Right.
teachers whose culture was there with the majority of what they were soaking in. And,
Right.
Or their friends,
Yeah.
with their peer
peers.
group, right, decides is the culture that we should all go with. And
Yeah.
and we really felt strong conviction about that, of like, especially in the formative years, in the beginning, before the extracurriculars really take off, before the friend group thing, from middle school on really gets going, like these
Right.
early years when we have all their attention and all their time, and
Right.
like
Right.
making
Which is a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. It's a big undertaking, no
It
doubt.
is.
But that's a huge.
But that was our conviction.
Yeah.
Was we need to figure this out, how we can make it life possible to work around
Right.
being available for that. You know what I mean? And so that meant working from home, being a homemaker, and I mean, we worked together too in the business, but it was like, how can we circle and make that all fit and work? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I like to say that it was a perfect picture, but it wasn't always. There was a lot of things that got in the way with that whole process. But I don't think we would have done anything different. Being able to have that opportunity to be in our kids' life more than some of their friends or some of the other groups. And it's just funny when you do that and you make that decision, how those type of communities attract each other too, right? So yourselves, ours, and a lot of people that we hang around with are pretty much in that same boat, and they would be considered our, one of those circles that aren't way out there. They're a little bit closer than the others,
Yeah.
But yeah, it hasn't always, and it shifts the seasons. We are a little bit older, but we still have 2 kids at home.
Yes,
We just
yes.
got rid of.
Got rid.
Got rid of.
I wouldn't say that. But
you did.
But okay, we
Edit that one.
Yeah,
We'll censor it.
right. Yeah, so we still have the dynamics are still the same at home, and it's funny because they're like the people that we associate with. A lot of them are like, hey, let's go out to eat here, let's go this one, and like, or let's go on a cruise. Like,
We're still raising kids.
we still got kids at home. I might have a gray beard
Right.
and be
Right.
successful or whatever. Like,
Yes.
we're still active
Yes.
parents.
Yes.
We're not, even though I do have a 26-year-old, 24-year-old, 17-year-old. I still have a couple at home, and people sometimes are like, oh, okay, but we'll find that balance. But it's kind of funny, because our span's a lot wider.
We had
than
a huge
most people,
learning curve.
Yes.
I heard about homeschooling from one of Ken's bosses at that pharmaceutical company in Illinois. He invited us to his house for dinner, and his wife had 2 kids, and they were really big spread in age, 2 boys. And I said, oh, what are the schools like out here? Because we lived in the city, and I knew by the time Emma got old enough to go to a school, that there's no way I wanted her to be in the city for school, you know, because I knew the education was better outside as far as like academics, and it's small town Illinois. And so, what's Ona's school like? And oh, my kids don't go to the school. I'm like, what? Oh, I homeschool. I'm like, what's that? And she starts telling me, and it sounded a lot like a classical education. They just read, and they learn piano, and you know, they're learning Latin, you know, and all these things. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. I think I want to do that with Emma. But at the time, I didn't know. So I made a little classroom upstairs, and Serena's room was the entire upstairs. So I made little centers, because all I knew is how preschools were set up. So I'm going to do little centers up there, and you know, we'd go up there and play, and I read a lot to her and things like that. And but it wasn't until our second move to Florida that I actually started. She was almost 8, and I started homeschooling her, because at that point she had gone to a private school. They had the Becca curriculum, and I'm like, oh, I can do this at home, you know?
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
and Kim was like, yeah, you can. Like, he trusted me to do it.
Yeah.
Because we talked about it before, and he's like, yeah, right? Because we didn't know anything about it. Nobody we knew homeschooled. There wasn't a huge community where we came from. And I got involved in the community down here pretty quick and met a lot of people. And
I think Florida's been
she was my
ahead of
guinea
it
pig.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
in the country, at least in the U.S. I feel like Florida has been ahead of it a lot longer than many others. I think
Sarasota,
across the
Manatee.
country, homeschooling has taken off a lot more in the last 5 years. You know,
yeah,
but Florida seemed to have been
kind of lead the way.
like she was homeschooled her whole life.
Yeah.
And I lived in Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nice to meet a native.
Yeah.
You don't get to meet you guys too often.
Not a transplant. Yeah.
And I mean, I grew up in Canada, and homeschooling was a very foreign, like very, very few people. And the people who did homeschool,
Kind of looked at.
they were strange.
they were strange.
I'll say it.
There's the stigma, you know what I
Right,
mean,
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Like they were
Outliers.
probably homeschooled
Right.
because they couldn't make it in school. You know
That's
what I mean?
what they would say,
Like
yeah.
there was some. And I mean, now knowing more about neurodivergence and things like that, I'm like, oh, okay, I see, understand it. But the stigma then, you know, was like these
Not
are
fitting into the system.
these are the oddballs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was very foreign for me,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
to get into and to,
Yeah.
but it was great, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, a rabbit trail.
No, that's
there.
okay.
It's okay.
It's all right. I really appreciate you guys coming on and talking with us. Do you have anything else you want to cover?
I think one last thing I just want to kind of get from
Yeah.
you, if we could, like, piece of wisdom or advice for how do you navigate coming to agreement and, let's say, transparency, balancing relationship of a marriage and business ownership, entrepreneurship. How do you, what would you say is, you know, your recommendations for us?
Finding
other-
agreement.
Finding agreement, yeah, coming to agreement. You know, maybe we have different views on this. We have different, you know,
Is agreement important?
does it matter?
Maybe communication. How about this? How about communication is important? Because a lot of times I would try to just, I'm not going to walk her through this until I'm really closer to committing, you know. And then when I'm committed, hey, honey, guess what? You know, and she's kind of gotten to learn some of that from me. But yeah, that is words of wisdom. I would say communication is key. Agreement is key. I use Robin as my Holy Spirit guidance. Sometimes I've looked back over the years at all the times that maybe I could have done better, and I thought, oh, wait, she was telling me that, and I ignored it. You know, just because there were different drivers at the time. And maturity really has walked me into a better place for our relationship and some of the things that we discuss. Is it still a work in progress? I'll just tell you that right now. I'm not got it down by any means, but it's better than what it used to be back in 2014. But I would say that the key thing is don't be an island with your circumstances, either by yourself or with you and your wife. Sharing things like with you guys or with others without having to go into grave detail, but just having another soundboard besides your best friend sometimes also helps too, because it'll get maybe a different scenario that you can take back, and share some of those things without taking offense, because offense does happen a lot of times with some of these discussions, because there some of them are difficult discussions, because we're talking about that time and that money and that security being stretched,
Yes.
being shifted, and sometimes change is good, sometimes change is hard to accept, and so don't be an island. Be open. Continue to be more open, and I would also gauge on some of the things before you open your mouth. I'll just tell you, as a serial entrepreneur, the one thing that I found out that I had to do so that I continue to be who I want to be, without feeling oppressed or whatever, is I started journaling my ideas.
Awesome.
When I did that, I had a list. I mean, everything from solar stuff to flower stuff to you name it. I mean, yeah, I still got the books, but I started writing it down. But then when something would catch my spirit and would have keep coming back, then I would be able to flip back to that instead of thinking, I forgot what I was talking about. When I journaled it, it was there. It was a place marker. It was placed. And then I didn't have to burden her with distractions, because sometimes with being multi-business faceted, that new nice shiny
object
thing,
syndrome.
it doesn't, sometimes it has a hook in it, okay?
Right.
And I get,
We could talk
Squirrel.
about stuff other than business.
yeah,
I love that.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
honoring your time in
Yeah.
a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then I'd say like some of the biggest decisions I had, like I'm getting ready to start the new one with campaigning it out. It was something I had in my spirit for 7 years, but after 4 years of it, pondering it, I did a presentation to my whole family saying, guys, I want to show you something. I grabbed a big poster board and I drew out some notes and on an easel, and I had all my whole family there. And it would have broke my heart if they said no, but I was ready to do it because I was passionate about it, you know. But that was
Everybody
one.
was excited about it
Yeah,
too.
but that was one of hundreds of ideas I had written down. But that one just kept coming up. So journaling's good for somebody like my mind is all the time, instead of throwing up on her and bouncing off her. It's like, do we talk about anything besides work, please? You know, I'm still working through that.
I'm working on it.
It's a work. Yeah, I'm still working on that. Like
Working on it.
going out on we would like to do more date nights, but how do you do that without talking about your kids or work or something like that? So I think
Yeah.
we maybe need
And he
some
needs to
flash.
be able to talk about work, but
Yeah.
you know, maybe have time designated for some of
Yeah.
that and some not.
I tried doing the drive to the destination. Is where I could talk about some of the work or the kids, or we get some of that out, and then once we get to
It takes
dinner,
45 minutes to get anywhere.
Yeah,
So
and then once we get to dinner, we sit down. It's like,
that's
all
it.
right,
That's it.
just us.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, we need to learn to do that
That works.
more often
Yeah.
than not. That's something.
We're still trying. We're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
But that's really good.
really
So
good.
so
self-management.
don't be an island. Journal stuff down. Write the ideas. Right, which is great for record, but also then to not burden. Right,
Communication.
and keeping communication open and fluid and happening all the time.
Yeah. And when he shares his ideas, it's very helpful. Like he was prepared with the Lynn. Oh, yeah. He was very prepared for questions too. It wasn't just an idea. And then me asking questions, and then it feels like an attack on him
Right.
because I'm asking lots of questions. I just want to
Yes.
know the answers to these questions.
Right. Yeah.
And so him being prepared, he was ready for my questions. And I think that's why that went so well.
Yeah, I totally get that though, and I actually started journaling more recently in my phone, but like writing all these things
Right.
down as they were coming, because also the memory thing of just totally spacing on them, and I realized I felt so much more relaxed after I wrote everything and I finished the list, and I go, I don't think I have anything else to add, and I was like, oh, like
That's
I feel
great.
feel real relaxed now. Like all of a sudden, that it's
You're not carrying it around.
I'm
everywhere.
not concerned that I'm going to forget it or I have to keep thinking about it. But also, like you were saying, there was a lot of I would share ideas like in the moment I thought of them. You know, I mean, like, oh, that's something, and I would share it. And then she starts asking questions. I was like, oh, fine, just play it. I mean,
Right, you feel deflated then,
like,
right? And we're not trying to
never
deflate you.
mind.
That's never
Just
happened.
pop a hole in it. Okay.
Yeah, there's a. So I'm an artist. I was trained in choreography at University of Florida. We talk a lot about the creative process. I think it applies here too, just with like all these wonderful ideas that you creative brains get. And there's like a baby stage. There's a very vulnerable like birthing stage to a creative idea. And oftentimes I think, in management of house and kids and relationship and all our things, we can get in this like executive type of problem solving mode or whatever. And when he has new ideas, or if I have new ideas, sometimes I'm not sure what stage his ideas are at. So he'll come to me with something, whether it's brand new or not, and so I'm immediately put in the position of, how should I respond? And sometimes I ask him, how should I respond? Like, what do you want me to, how do you need me to respond right now? And often, like, I really appreciate hearing your strategy, Ken, because it relieves the pressure, from the relationship, from the dynamic of this isn't so precious. This isn't so new. This isn't so, I think that, you guys are totally capable of taking an idea to the next step. But I love that like just rumination and that like meditation. I think that can be a really cool tool because then it relieves pressure from other people to be what you need,
Right.
So it's good.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know there's probably 100 other things too
Yeah.
that we can put onto that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but those are like that foundation is key.
I love that.
And knowing where you guys are at in life too, you guys are at a different place than where we are at. But if we recognize that, then that kind of changes that approach too, how you're going to present it and what you're going to say.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And fear-based responses too, to recognize when it's like when that is about to occur, then it's kind of like, oh, I just, you catch yourself.
You catch
And
yourself
that's
realizing like I'm responding out of fear
Right.
to this
And not out of like
curiosity
curiosity or
Yeah.
faith or anything like
Yeah.
that. It's
Gotcha.
more like, oh, yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of
more of a control fear type
Gotcha.
Yeah.
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's, yeah. So
Great.
that's helpful too.
Anything else we can squeeze out of you for wisdom?
That not in the time frame. Probably. There's plenty to share. So.
Yes.
But being an open book too, anytime anybody, you always want to be approachable to people, to make it sound like, oh, okay, talk to that guy, but be approachable too, and that helps. It helps you be able to know that you're doing the right thing with discipling and sharing your ideas with people, not being pompous and arrogant and creating yourself in a whole different space. So I would just say, I deal with it from my team. I always tell them, they know I'm very transparent. Well, okay, if you need to know anything, I'm more than willing to share with you certain things. So,
Nice.
yeah.
And those are valued relationships too.
They
for
are.
employees.
My turnover, I still have the same guy I started back in the day when I got that first big account for the aquatic ventures in 2017. I still have that same person with me. In fact, I hired his 2 sons,
Wow.
and they're still there.
Wow.
So that does, the valued relationship does go on.
Yeah.
That's
So when
amazing.
you're transparent and when you're
Yeah.
vulnerable for that.
And if I could just throw in, this might be a personal detail, but it says a lot about you that your kids work for you.
They do.
Yeah.
Yes, they
It
do.
says a lot about that and work environment you guys have created.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they can thrive in that.
That's what
And they
we'd
want
like
to
see.
work.
Right. Yeah, they had other options, plenty of other options, and they still do. But we try to create a great space and not just make them feel entitled, like, oh yeah, you're just going to have this. No,
Sure.
you're going to learn the way we did. I want you to be respected. And like my oldest daughter, she's been doing this since some commercial pull routes she was doing back in 2016.
Yeah, and she stretched to learn leadership too. It wasn't natural for her to want to make phone calls and be that, but just to be able to train your daughter in the workforce too, to try to multiply yourself.
Yeah, especially in that element and the people
And her
that I deal
willingness to
with.
still do it, even though it wasn't her comfort level, it speaks volumes.
Absolutely.
It's been a blessing to have the kids with us. So blessed.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and that's hopefully the goal is to have everybody pointed in the right direction and be able to absorb whatever they need to from some of the stuff that overflows in the cup, and then they get to do the same for their kids and their kids. So
That's great.
I love that.
And the other valuable thing I've just taken from this as we wrap just is I love that it's, you know, very much in your story. It's never too late. Like there's still always room for a new idea, for new opportunity, for God to show up, right? And it's never too late. Like, doesn't matter if you've had the big crash, you know, if the thing you thought was the dream comes crashing down, you know, you can start over, you can rebuild. And look where you guys are now.
right.
I would
kept
have
at
never
it.
imagined.
Yeah, hills and valleys all along the way, you know, and we just know that we
And our
serve.
faith really just grew. I would say staying connected to the source, you know, literally God and what He's done for us, and letting your faith grow in those seasons of hardship are so valuable. And it makes you more and more resilient
Yes.
in the end. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Thank you guys so much for coming on the
Thank
podcast.
you for having us. It's been such
Love
an
it.
honor
Thank
for
you
us
for
to
being
be
willing to
here.
be transparent and just very open about what you guys went through, what you are going through. You know, it takes a lot of vulnerability.
Yeah, we learned a lot of new things about you guys
Oh
today.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's great. Yeah, it's good.
If any of you guys have questions, please send them in. We know Ken and Robin will be able to forward them along. We might get some
Yeah.
answers in the comments.
Yeah.
But yeah, please submit your questions in as well. Send them to us. We'd love to hear what you guys have to want to know. They are brilliant, as you know, obviously a married couple and entrepreneurs. You guys got to hear that and see that through this episode, and hopefully we'll have you guys on again sometime soon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us. We look forward to
Thank
it.
you.
Yes.
Thanks,
So much more to
guys.
share.
We'll see you guys next week.